Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Irrigation Part 1. In this session, we are going to study about Introduction to Irrigation. So, we will understand what is irrigation and importance of irrigation in India. So, we are going to study this particular important topic in this session. Sources of irrigation. So, there are different types of irrigation sources in India, that is from the well, tube well, canal, and advantages and disadvantages of all these types we are going to study in this session. We are also going to study about what is water logging, right? So we are going to cover up these important topics in this session. So what is irrigation? Water is an important input for the successful of agriculture. We all know that without water, agriculture is not impossible, right? So that is very, very important. Water may be available to the crops in the natural course by the rainfall, or it may be supplied to the agriculture field artificially by the human effort. So either we have to depend upon the natural way for watering to the cropland, that is dependent on the rainfall, or artificially we as a human can do some efforts and supply water to the agricultural field. So this we can do. So the process of supplying water to the crops by the artificial means such as canal, wells, tube wells, tank, etc. from the source of water such as river, pond, or underground water is called irrigation. So artificially we can take out water from the canals, wells, tube wells, tanks, right? And they are taken out from water source such as rivers, ponds, and underground water. So this artificially providing water to the agriculture field, right? This is called as irrigation. In India, irrigation is important due to the following reasons. So let us understand why it is important in India. So uneven distribution of rainfall. The rainfall in our country is not evenly distributed. We all know there is a wide variation in rainfall from the region to region. Certain places receive adequate rainfall, while in many regions of the rainfall is sparse, which overcome by irrigation. So we are at some places we are totally dependent for artificial supplying of water, that is irrigation method, right? So because at some region there is no rainfall or very sparse rainfall. Variable rainfall. In India, rainfall is usually erratic and monsoon lasts only for about 3 to 4 months. So we are having very limited period of rainfall, and in that is in the monsoon season, right? And that lasts to just 3 to 4 months. Therefore, it is necessary to provide water through other means by better agriculture yield. So we must provide water to our agricultural field by some other ways, right? To get a proper agricultural yield. Cultivation of certain crops. Almost every possible type of crop grow in India, right? We are having all the different types of crop in India, right? But certain crops such as rice, sugarcane, etc. require an adequate and regular supply of water. So we require a regular supply of water for rice and sugarcane, right? So such irrigation only can solve this problem. Hot climate. Being a tropical country, the temperature is high in most of the parts and the rate of evaporation is quite high. So we are in temperate region of the world. So we are a tropical country. Being a tropical country and that hot climate. Being a tropical country means our country in the tropic region, right? So the temperature is quite high most of the year and most of the parts even, and the rate of evaporation is also high. So an artificial supply of water is necessary for the field because evaporation is also high, right? So whatever the water is there, that get evaporated. So we are dependent on supply of water to our agricultural field. Occupation. Agriculture is the main occupation of the majority of the people. Therefore, proper irrigation would provide better employment opportunities. So irrigation should be proper, right? Better irrigation, because main occupation of our country is agriculture. We are totally dependent on agriculture, and majority of the people are occupation is agriculture. So if the irrigation facilities is not proper in our country, so there will be a loss of agricultural on the front of agriculture. There will be a great loss to our country, right? So to have a better opportunities, right, employment opportunities, our irrigation facilities should be proper. Green Revolution program is introduced in many parts of our country where the fertilizers are used in large quantities. So have a proper production of crop, we are using fertilizer, right? So but the use of fertilizer can be effective if irrigation water is available regularly. So this use of fertilizer will be effective only when the irrigation of water is done. Okay, water is available to the crop field. Sources of irrigation. Different sources of irrigation are used depending upon the topography. So we are dependent on the different features of irrigation. Different sources of irrigation are used depending upon the topography. So different sources of irrigation are available, but that depends on the topography, soil, rainfall, and availability of surface or groundwater. Nature of rivers, whether the perennial or non-perennial, and the requirements of crop. What type of crops we are growing, how much water it require, right? What type of soil is. So according to the soil, according to the rainfall available, according to the surface or groundwater available, nature of river near to the crop field, and the requirement of crop, all this decide our irrigation, right? Sources of irrigation. The main sources of irrigation used in the different parts of the country are wells and the tube well surge irrigation. Okay, so this is wells and tube well that comes under the surge irrigation, canal surge irrigation, and tank irrigation. So there are three different types of irrigation we are having. Wells and tube wells are presently the most important means of irrigation in India and account for about 63.63% from, this is the data from 2011 to 12 of the total irrigated area of the country. So whatever the agriculture land we are having today, in this region 63.63% of the agriculture land are irrigated with the help of wells and tube wells. So this is the primary source of agriculture, right? They are popular in the alluvial plains where the ground is soft and easy to dig. Two types of tube wells are surface and subsurface wells and tube wells. The surface and the subsurface wells are easy to dig and maintain where the groundwater is available. So we take out the groundwater with the help of surface, and subsurface wells are easy to dig, right? So we can take out water from the surface and even the subsurface wells, and they are maintained where the groundwater is available. So these surface well and subsurface wells are there where the groundwater is available. So they may be either lined with the bricks, stones, and masonry, or maybe unlined wells. So they can be either proper lined with the help of bricks or stones, or sometimes they are not even lined. Water may be drawn up from these manually with a rope or a bucket by using reherd worked on by the drought animals like bullock or with the Persian wheel. So with the help of rope and the bucket system, we are having a reherd, right? So that is run by some animals like bullock or with a Persian wheel system. It may also be drawn out by using the pump powered by the diesel or electricity. So sometimes we are using the pump also to take out water from the wells by using diesel or electricity. Tube wells have been introduced in the past few decades where there is a sufficient groundwater supply and the soil is fertile to facilitate boring of tube well as into the earth and the tapping groundwater. So the tube wells have been introduced in the past few decades where there is a sufficient groundwater, right? If the groundwater is there, then only we can use the tube wells and supply, and the soil is fertile to facilitate boring tube wells as into the earth and tapping the groundwater. We can take out the groundwater by the boring of the tube wells also. The water is pulled up a deep bore made in the ground. So in these places where the groundwater is available, water is pulled out with the deep bore and made in the ground, inserted with the help of electrically operated pumps. Tube wells are more reliable than the well because the borehole taps the water from an aquifer. So tube wells are more reliable than the well because they are having borehole taps and the water from the aquifer can be available. Okay, so the tube wells are used extensively in the northern plains of some of the states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and West Bengal. So here we are using the tube wells. Advantage of wells and tube wells irrigation. Well is the simplest and the cheapest source of irrigation and the poor Indian farmer can easily afford it. So they can be totally dependent on the well and it is easy to get the water from these wells, right? It is cheaper and they can facilitate their irrigation, as well as an independent source of irrigation and can be used as and when the necessity arises. So sometimes the farmers are having their own well, so they can also use that water, right, for the irrigation. Canal irrigation, on the other hand, it is controlled by other agencies and cannot be used at well. So we are having the canal irrigation facilities also that can be handled by some agencies. Excessive irrigation by the canal leads to the problem. So we are having some problem when we are using excessive irrigation by canal. Okay, that leads to the problem of ray, which is not the case with the well irrigation. So well irrigation is better. Okay, but canal irrigation is also used, but when it is used excessively, then there is a problem of ray. Right, so this is not in the case of well irrigation. There is a limit to the extent of canal irrigation beyond the tail end of the canal, while a well can be dug at any convenient place. So we are having a limitation to use the canal, right? But in the case of well, we can dug well at any convenient place, right? So several chemicals such as nitrate, chloride, sulfate, etc. are generally found mixed in the well water. So these are some of the drawback here. They add to the fertility of the soil when they reach the agriculture field along with the well water. The farmer has to pay regularly for the canal irrigation, which is not the case with the well irrigation, right? So this canal irrigation is handled by some of the agencies. So if you are taking water, then you have to pay some amount to them. But when you are having your own well, so the well irrigation, you do not have to pay anything. So it stores monsoon water which otherwise would run waste. So there should be replenishment of the water in these well. Okay, so monsoon water seepage is there. So this all the runoff from the surface water at the time of monsoon, that water get collected underground and that is again available from the well. Disadvantages of well and tube wells well irrigation. Only limited areas can be irrigated. We cannot use this well water for the larger areas, right? So we can irrigate to the limited area. Normally, a well can irrigate 1 to 8 hectare of the land. The well may dry up and may be rendered useless for irrigation if excess water is taken out of it. Very important. If we take out excess of water, then this can make our well dry. In the event of a drought, the groundwater level falls and enough water is not available in the well when it is needed the most. So when there is a condition of drought, at that particular time, the groundwater goes very low, and at that time, well water is not available. And at that crucial time, we require a lot of water for our irrigation. So we can be fully dependent on these well for irrigation. Tube can draw a lot of groundwater from its neighboring areas and makes the ground dry and unfit for agriculture. So this is also one of the drawbacks, that tube well, when attached to these well, all the groundwater comes out at the surface, right, and makes the ground dry and unfit for the agriculture. Such irrigation through wells is time taken and cause strain to the draft or drought animals. Well and tube well irrigation is not possible in the areas of brackish and groundwater. So the area where there is a brackish groundwater is available, right? Salt is there. So that particular groundwater cannot be used for the irrigation. So that is of no use. Canal irrigation. Next type is the canal irrigation. Canals are the second most important means of irrigation and account for about 26.19%. This is again the data from 2011 to 12 of the total irrigated area of India. So after the well and tube well, we are having canal system that account for 26.9% used for irrigation, right? And it is a well developed in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and the rest of the Indo-Gangetic plain, and in the deltas of the peninsular rivers like Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri. So generally from these important rivers, the canals are cut and that can reach to the inner area where there is no source of water is there, right? So these river water in the form of canal that can be used for the process of irrigation. River water is diverted into canal that have been dug with a great ease in the northern plain because the ground is soft to dig and the land has gentle slope also. So building canal is not a problem in the northern plain because the ground is quite soft and it is easy to dig and the slopey also. So the canal can be made easily and the river water can be diverted to these canal. So moreover, the heavy expense incurred in the construction of canals worthwhile because the fertile alluvial soil provided rich agriculture harvest after they were supplied with water in the regulated manner. Okay, so we are having a heavy expense incurred in the construction of canal. A lot of money is used on the canal. Was a worthwhile because, but it is a worthwhile because the fertile alluvial soil provide rich agricultural harvest. This is having a lot of alluvial soil. So you can have lot of agriculture harvest, lot of crop yield, but the water facility should be there. For that, canals are built in these areas. The construction of canal is peninsular India on the same scale as the north was considered too expensive because of the rocky terrain, but it is not easy to construct in the peninsular region of the country. Why? Because it is having rocky terrain. The canal system is better developed in the coastal plains again and in the deltaic region. But it is easy to construct the canals in the coastal plain because again it is having soft to dig out these canal and also in the deltaic region. But it is not easy to make a canal in the peninsular India. There are different types of canals, perennial and inundation or flood canals, and the storage canals. So there are three different types of canal. Perennial canal. Perennial canal draw their water from the perennial rivers or from the reservoir behind the dams. Right? So perennial canals that draw water for every year, for whole year, from the perennial river and reservoir like dams. Inundation or the flood canals. So inundation canals are spill channels. The flood water are diverted into these channels. So when there is a flood, these canal get filled up with the water, right? And river Satluj has many such canal, seasonal canals. So these are seasonal, these are not perennial. Only at the time of flood, these inundation or the flood canals are working. Storage canals. In peninsular India, the storage canal facilitate the storage of water for the use in the dry season. So we are having storage canal in the peninsular region. Advantage of canal irrigation. So most of the canal provide perennial irrigation, means the irrigation can be done throughout the year, right? And we can come over the drought condition that help to increase the production, agriculture production. Canals are constructed by the government and provide water to the farmers at extremely nominal rates. Canals have restored the fertility of many regions which were barren and have greatly contributed to the India's flood security. So canals are restored the fertility in many regions of the country. Canals are like small rivers and streams and carry out lot of silt which restore the soil fertility. So they are also helping to maintain the soil fertility, because this water which comes from the river, it is having lot of silt in it, and that is good for growth of the crop. So that also maintain the soil fertility. But there are some disadvantages to the canal irrigation. What are that? At some places, canal water seeps into the adjoining field and causes water logging. So sometimes there is a water logging at some places. This canal water seeps to the adjoining field and it causes water logging. Excess of water raises the water table and deposit of salt take place in the ground, which is called salinization. So there is sometimes the water raises the water table and deposit of salt in this place. So that also causes the salinization and thus making the soil infertile. During the heavy rainfall, the canal overflow or breaks the bank and causing flood to the agriculture land. Canals are effective only in the plain areas, and excessive siltation decreases the efficiency of the canal. But sometimes excessive siltation also decreases its efficiency. The marshy areas near the canal act as the breeding grounds of the mosquitoes, which results in the widespread malaria. So this is one of the drawback of it. Tank irrigation. The third type is tank irrigation. It is common in the peninsular India and it is in the eastern states, and it accounts 3.48%. That is again the data from 2011 to 12, and this type of is a least type of irrigation that is used in our country. Mud, earthen and the monsoonary walls are built across a depression or the valley to store water in the tanks, as the land is too hard and rocky to dig wells or canals. So at these places, right, in the peninsular India and the eastern state, the lands are quite hard to dig out and they are rocky also. So what happens when the water is deposited in these dig or the depressions? So the walls are built around it to save the water. Tank irrigation is more common in the peninsular plateau region due to the following factors. The canals are difficult to build and wells cannot be dug due to the hard terrain. We all know this. This is a little seepage of water due to the underlying hard rock, and water is retained for longer time. So this is good, right? It work as a tank. So there is a rock in the base, at the base. So water do not seep into the ground. So water get collected and that can be used as a tank. Many rivers dry up during the summer and therefore cannot supply water through the canals. So river get plenty of water during the rainy season, which can be impounded by making dams and bunds. The scattered nature of the population and agricultural field favors tank irrigation. So this type of population, that is scattered nature, people are scattered, right? And the agricultural field favors this tank type of irrigation. Advantage of tank irrigation: it allows monsoon water to be stored and used in the dry period. So it allows monsoon water to get collected, stored, and when there is a dry period, that water can be used. It raises the underground water level. It also helpful to raise the underground water level. Tank irrigation is cheaper as the rainwater is collected in the natural depression. This tank irrigation is cheaper as the rainwater is collected in the natural depressions. Not only the irrigation, but also in many villages, tank form the source of water for the domestic purposes. So they are not only for the irrigation only, this water is also used for some domestic purpose. It stores monsoon water which otherwise would run waste. So this is a good to restore the water, right? So monsoon water get collected in these tank, and whenever otherwise this water could run off and get wasted out. So this water get collected, monsoon water get collected, and whenever is used either for the domestic purpose or the agriculture purpose, that can be used. But there is some disadvantages of this tank irrigation also. It has no such use in drought period, as the tank are filled with rainwater, which is scarce during the drought period. So in the drought period, the water is less. So that cannot be used for the irrigation purpose. The tank occupy larger area which could be used for cultivation. So this tank area are quite larger and that cannot be used for cultivation. So this is again the wastage of land. Tank are usually shallow. They are not deeper, they are shallow. So that also do not contain large amount of water. Due to the high temperature, water is lost through the evaporation. Again, when there is a lot of heat, there is high temperature. So water is lost through the process of evaporation. Due to the stagnation of water, siltation take place, and the water used for irrigation is mineral free and it is not good for cultivation. Again, there is a stagnation of water. There is a siltation take place sometime, and also this irrigation water is mineral free, so that is not again good for the use of agriculture. So these are some of the drawback of tank irrigation. Another topic is water logging. So in order to provide congenial moisture to the growing crops, farmers apply heavy irrigation to their farmland. Also, in order to leach down the salt deeper into the soil, the farmer provide more irrigation water. So we require more irrigation water. So there is a collection of water in around the cropland. Okay, and also the farmer want that the salt should not be at the upper level. It should go deep into the soil, right? So they require water for that. However, due to the inadequate drainage and the poor quality irrigation water, there is an accumulation of water underground and gradually it forms a continuous column with the water table, right? So inadequate drainage and the poor quality of irrigation water, what happened? All the water that get accumulated underground, gradually it forms a continuous column with the water table. So we call these soil as waterlogged soil. This soil is called as waterlogged soil, and the affect crop growth due to the inhibition of exchange of gases. So lot of water is there and there is no air for the exchange of gases from the roots. So the water logging is most often associated with the salinity, because the water used for the irrigation contains salt and the soil get badly degraded due to the erroneous irrigation practices. So This is the thing. When there is erroneous irrigation practices, this give rise to the salinity, right? And because the water used for the irrigation contains salt in it. So this is the thing. Okay, so this is all about this session. We will have one more session to complete the irrigation. Thank you very much.